what I feel the most egregious thing about Gamergate was how when called out, when the burgers and fries stuff was called out by the gamers that did articles or whatever, instead of being like, yeah, all this harassment was bad, this is our opportunity to be like, okay, we're just going to drop it or whatever,
Well,
that community doubled down on the harassment and called it Gamergate.
dude, these articles piss people off all over the place. I wasn't a Chan user. I wasn't anything like that. These articles were discussed all over the internet, on Reddit, on gaming forums. I think I found out about it on MMO Champion. I'm not 100% on that because it was like fucking 10 years ago. But the Gamers Are Dead articles, I saw those before I even knew what the fuck Gamergate was. And I was like, wow, what the fuck? Why would these people say such horrible shit about gamers? That's not who we are at all. And it bothered me. And I was mad about the articles. And then I moved on with my life, but it still bothered me for like weeks later. I'd be thinking about it. I'd be like, why did they write these shitty ass articles? I fucking hate these people. I didn't think I fucking hate them, but I was like, it's such a bullshit thing. Um, and it bothered me for a long time. And then I didn't even know all I knew was that these articles were very mean and unfair and not representative of what I think gaming is and what I think gaming culture is and what I think of when I think of gamers. That's what I thought. And then I moved on with my life, and then I found out about Gamergate like 6 months later in spring of 2015, and I got involved with that for a completely different reason because of the creative freedom stuff.
Um, these articles were not written in a bubble. They were about a specific inciting event. And the overall position on that inciting event was correct in that it was bad. And the overall message of all those game articles was generally like, hey, we shouldn't let this define gaming. Um, that's sort of what the articles were about. Um, the, um, so like that was sort of an opportunity for people to distance themselves, but they didn't. They rallied around the backlash to these articles, and then Gamergate was produced. And I feel like that was sort of the bad thing. It's like it's one thing to do a bad thing, but it's another thing to defend the doing of the bad thing. And I think that's the thing that kind of needs to be reconciled with.
Like I'm not like defending like the doing of bad stuff. Like and Miss Sonata asks in the chat, I wonder what it was about those articles that made you think they're talking about me? Serious question. I'm actually very curious.
It was
Because
the
it seemed like
titles.
they were, yeah, it seemed like they were, and not just the titles. Like we keep saying the titles, like, oh, well, the content of the articles were very nuanced and were very careful in how they. No, they fucking weren't. Some of them were more nuanced than others. Others were complete fucking trash heaps. Like Leigh Alexander's article, like it's not the most nuanced thing in the world. Neither is Devin Wilson's article, right? He's not coming in with a with a super reasonable take that everybody could agree with. Like that's not what these articles were. Some of them were better than others. I don't disagree with that. But like this idea that they were completely harmless. And of course, it was this attempt, this coordinated potentially, right? We don't have 100% proof on that, but a coordinated attempt by the games journalists to end the gamer identity, which which a lot of people, including myself, thought was a good thing. We thought the gamer identity was good, and we thought that we're not misogynists. We're not like these. They're like they're saying we are.
But is it sensible to say that that was their campaign if it was done by one article? I think if there was a quote unquote an attempt to destroy the gamer identity, would that not have been an ongoing effort? Because what these read more is a sort of lamenting of things that happened in a community where like you feel disillusioned a little bit. So like the beginning of Leigh Alexander's articles is I often say I'm a video game culture writer, but lately I don't know exactly what that means. Game culture, as we know, is kind of embarrassing. And it's like, this is the words of someone sort of at conflict because like this in the name of games culture these people were like harassed and stuff in this like really public way in kind of a gross way, and it's like I can understand that feeling
Well, no,
of
she
like
talks.
being because these people continue to be in game journalism, continue to operate within game stuff, and they didn't produce this campaign to end gamers.
Because it was so poorly received. I think Leia Alexander. Wait, did Leia? Hang on,
I
I
think
haven't
that's the
verified this specific claim I was going to make, so never mind. I'm not
I
going to
think
go
it's a
down that road.
counterfactual, so they're difficult to appeal to.
Well, no, because didn't Leia? I have to go look it up now. Leia Alexander. Leia Alexander herself, I think, admitted that she was. Hang on, let me verify this is true before I say it. Okay, yeah, she did. Leia Alexander herself says that she almost got fired over her article.
Okay.
So, like, obviously, there was. I guess maybe the executive stepped in. Were like, "Whoa, you got to tone this language down. This is bad for our business, or whatever."
I mean that I mean that might be, but like I don't sometimes when you're heated, you say a bunch of shit. So like maybe she was heated,
She doesn't
and
just say like, "Oh, well, the people who harass Zoe Quinn are bad people." Like she's like, "No, when I think of gamers, I think of or when you think of gamers, I don't have the exact quote, but it was something about mushroom hats and standing in line for hours for no reason, their eyes glazed over. Like it's not some fucking like nuanced piece. This isn't this isn't T.S. Eliot here. This is this is
well, um, like that seems like the conclusion of this article is now part of a writer's job in a creative human medium is to help curate a creative community and an inclusive culture. And the lack of commitment to that just looks out of step, like a partial compromise with the howling trolls who've latched onto ethics as the latest flag in their onslaught against evolution and inclusion. Developers and writers alike want games about more things, and games by more people. We want, and we are getting, and will keep getting, tragicomedy, vignette, musicals, dream worlds, family tales, ethnographies, abstract art. We will get this because we're creating culture now. We're refusing to let anyone feel prohibited from participating. Quote unquote gamer isn't just a dated demographic label that most people increasingly prefer not to use. Gamers are over. That's why they're so gamers are over. That's why they are so mad. These obtuse shit slingers, these wailing hyperconsumers, these childish internet arguers, they are not my audience. They don't have to be yours. There's no side to be on. There's no debate to be had. There is what's past and what there is, and there is what's now. There is the role you choose to play and what's ahead. So it seems to be that what they're saying is that like the quote unquote gamers, the people who exemplify gaming, those who are the loudest, most obnoxious people in the space who call themselves gamers and sort of co-opted the term and made it about them, they are mad because they are being not courted as much. So
so
like
you
it's
skipped
not saying
over a
that we don't
lot.
well, yeah, that's the conclusion. That's the end. So the point is that like she wants games. She wants to have an inclusive culture, a creative community, rich tapestry of video games that people can play, but that the people who have co-opted the term gamer and made it their own and don't allow anyone else in, fuck them. That's the point. Is that we should not just listen to just them and always cater to their taste, and whenever they, the loudest minority, wail about something or other, we don't need to make everything about them. That is the thesis of this paper.
I just want to read these three paragraphs though from the front. I often say I'm a video games culture writer, but lately I don't know exactly what that means. Game culture as we know it is kind of embarrassing. It's not even culture. It's buying things, speckling over memes and in jokes repeatedly, and it's getting mad on the internet. It's young men queuing with plush mushroom hats and backpacks and jutting promo poster rolls, queuing passionately for hours at events around the world to see things that marketers want them to see, to find out whether they should buy things or not. They don't know how to address or behave television cameras pan across the listless queues and often catch the expressions of people who don't quite know why they themselves are standing there. Games culture is a petri dish of people who know so little about human social interaction and professional life works that they can concoct online wars about social justice or games journalism ethics straight-faced and cause genuine human consequences because of video games. Like, this is not some like super nuanced fucking piece. Am I wrong? I mean, like, do you disagree?
Um, how do you think here? I'm just reading through a bit more. Um, like, to what end is she making this? Like, for what purpose is she painting this picture?
I don't know. You have to ask her that.
Because how do you reconcile that against the fact that she states that she wants to create a rich creative community and inclusive culture and wants to have more and more and more and more games?
Well, she doesn't think that gamers are like that now. She thinks that gamers are fucking shitty people. Like,
I
why
think
can't
here,
she just say like, "Ella, hey, look, the people who are harassing Zoe Quinn, they're fucking stupid. I don't like those people." That's all you gotta fucking say, right? You don't have to say all this other shit. You don't need to call for an end to the gamer identity. You don't need to trash talk games culture. You don't. Like, there's actually, if you want to like reform games culture in like a positive way, like there's actual things that like I could get on board with. There's like actual things that like other people can get on board with. But this isn't how you go about doing it. And you know what? By doing this, they created GamerGate. They created this massive thing, and it became to some extent like a cultural war battle because that's what they wanted to have. They wanted to go to war. They wanted to make this a cultural battle. All they had to do was just update their fucking ethics and say, "Hey, look, we're sorry, we fucked up in a couple areas. We'll do better in the future." That's all they had to do. They didn't need to do this. I mean, do you disagree?
I think because the nature of the um, raising of the ethical concerns so primarily focused on harassment of someone who didn't even perform the ethical concerns. It seemed like the main thrust of the issue was the harassment of this woman. Um, Again, if a lot of the harassment was against Nathan Grayson, I think I'd be on your side, but it wasn't because like these. Remember, this is a time, like as we spoke about earlier, it's much less the case nowadays that people are harassed online just for being a girl. Like people will be in like a game and like voice chat or whatever, and like as soon as they say something, like a bunch of like shit starts up. Like it's not just the people who harassed Zoe Quinn. It's also this whole. It's the people who saw that, and in light of that, thought that the reason, quote unquote, sorry, thought that the quote unquote reason she was harassed was the interesting thing about it all. It was the people who who aided in participating in that culture force that would drive women out for being women, um, things like that. And so, yeah, there are just like were at the time like bad aspects that needed to be called out, and it all came to a head. And sometimes when there's a bunch of things happen that are kind of a background malaise, and it culminates in one big incident. Yeah, a lot of those times like it all sort of comes out at once, and that's just kind of how people deal with things. But reading into it, what is the ultimate thesis of this argument? What is the core point? The core point of it is really summarized at the end that, quote unquote, that the gamer identity has increasingly been co opted by the people who are the worst representatives of it, and we ought reclaim it.
But that's not even true. Like here's also the funny thing in the world too. Like nobody gives a shit about Zoe Quinn. Like that's the funniest thing ever. Like nobody cares about this like stupid drama on the internet. Like it was covered on like drama YouTube channels for like 2 weeks, and then like it would have blown over because like nobody gives a shit. Like like no people who aren't plugged into games journalism and like they're Leah Alexander. These people they're all friends with each other. They're all
It
friends with
was,
each other. They're friends with Zoe Quinn. In the Game Journal pros list, they even talk about how their friend Zoe's under it. Well, I don't think they say her friend, but they say like Zoe's under attack or whatever, and they want to like send her a basket of flowers, which is like fine. I mean, I'm not sure that they should be interacting with game developers in that way. I don't know. That's kind of weird, but like game, but like these people are friends with each other. It's all like a big clique of people. They all have like these weird social justice politics, which is like fine. They're entitled to their opinion. Like I don't disagree. Like they they can have their viewpoints. They just can't be the only viewpoints. And their friends under attack. Their friend who like probably like 99% of gamers have never even heard of. And now 99% of gamers are being painted with this broad brush because like a couple dozen people on the internet are talking about, or maybe a few hundred people on the internet are talking about drama. Like like this is your response to a few hundred people on the internet talking about internet drama that like most people have never heard of, they don't care about. I never heard of Zoe Quinn prior to this. I read the article. I still didn't know who Zoe Quinn was. Maybe I didn't read the whole thing. I don't know. This was 10 years ago. But
mhm.
I like nobody cares about Zoe Quinn. Like this was like she was like a minor game developer. She wasn't like some super famous celebrity. This whole thing would have been blown over in like a week or two. Like nobody cared about it for the most part. Like some people did care, and some people did care for like good reasons, and like maybe some people cared for bad reasons. But like the vast majority of gamers didn't care about this shit. I wasn't plugged into this shit. And I don't think like if I asked like 100 gamers on the street in like August 1st, 2014, oh, what do you think of Zoe Quinn? They'd be like, I bet I bet most of them would say I don't know who that is.
Mhm. Uh, I think it would not be accurate to sort of characterize what happened with the whole burgers and fries stuff and all of the um, harassment that follows in the campaign because all of that Zoe post stuff did get a lot of traction. It was not just a couple handful of people. It was fairly significant, which is why it was sort of a major event that happened. And it's what sort of spawned everything. Um, it is mm, because it is hard to speak to 9 years after the fact, but in between the Zoe post being posted and the Gamers Are Dead's article stuff and all the harassment, like there was a lot of discussion about it. This was not a handful of people. It was quite a bit of folks. Um,
Well, you had drama YouTube,
and
you had YouTubers covering it, and you had games journalists talking about it. You had other indie devs talking about it to some extent. Like, yeah, sure, and you have some internet forums like Reddit and 4chan and something awful were talking about it. Like it wasn't like it wasn't entirely nobody, but like this collection, like the most people who are gamers don't know who. I probably like 90, probably maybe not 99%, but probably because he was talked about in the media a lot, which is like kind of part of the problem since a lot of the people who talked about her in the media were friends with her. Um, which isn't like her fault per se. It's the part of the games journalists, but like she wasn't some like major figure who like most people who were gamers heard about or cared about in any way. right? And so, like, why are you blaming literally billions of people on Earth who are gamers for the actions of like what a few hundred people who are talking about it? Let's say a few thousand people are talking about it, um, and maybe like a few dozen of those, maybe a few dozen of those people are engaging in harassment. Like, okay, like that's bad. I don't like support harassment or whatever, but like to do this and then write all these articles declaring it into the gamer identity, it's like the dumbest way you could ever go about doing this in like the history of like like no, this is how you burn bridges with communities. Like there's a reason like these people painted with such a huge brush and wrote these articles that were pretty fucking shitty, and they all came out on the same day, 10 articles on one day, all saying the same thing. Well, not all saying the same thing, but like saying very similar sentiments. And some of them are also calling for games to be censored, right? You've got Devin Wilson coming out there. The video games need to be less violent. They need to be less competitive. They need to be less sexy women in them. Like dude, like you pissed off everybody with this shit. Or not everybody. I mean, like I guess some people didn't care about it, and that's fine. Like they can not care about it. But if some people might even agreed with it. I don't know. Maybe you agreed with. Do you agree with the sentiments of the articles?
I think they had very good things to say about the thing because like there was a lot of issues with the culture at the time. But it would not be accurate to describe the situation that happened at the time. Perhaps you weren't aware of it because you did not have much interaction of it at the time. Again, you said that you got involved like 6 months or whatever after all of this started. But at the time, this was everywhere and it was huge and the backlash was very big and there are lots of people getting on Zoe's case about this, notably not Grayson's. Um, and it is a little, how should I say, it is otherwise unclear the strength of the argument to say like, well, all of these articles were published based on a little niche event that happened to these people's friends that nobody knows what they're talking about. This was not something that no one knew what it was talking about. This was a huge public thing that blew up.
I mean, to
It was
some
very
extent.
public.
To
It
some
it
extent.
blew up. It blew up, and some amount of people produced the harassment that involved that had the outcomes that Zoe Quinn and others had to endure, and everyone else had no problem with that. And that was the primary issue. It's not even that like one individual so happened to take it too far. It's that in this culture that was occurring at the time, this online culture especially that seemed to so much overwhelmingly like was the loudest voice in the room. This was they didn't care, and if anything, thought it was warranted that she get harassed,
I don't. Again,
and that
you're
there
also
was
making this.
salacious sort of drama and sexual sort of tabloidy aspect of it all was the fun part of it, such that the community that was created in response to it was called Burgers and Fries because about the 5 guys she had a sexual involvement with. It doesn't make sense for that to be the name of the response if it's not about the sex.
Yeah, like
So
again, I don't.
there was a huge backlash that focused on the sexual aspect of it all that resulted in a woman getting harassed and threatened and run out of her house
I mean, there's
over
there's massive
a
drama
niche.
about celebrities every day. Like Jonah Hill, literally just got like his 2 weeks in the sun over some stupid drama involving him like 3 months ago. Remember? But like
big
nobody
celebrities
cares.
have big celebrities have immense resources to deal with whatever events might happen and they could hire teams of people to take care of their business at a moment's notice. This is not something that is the capacity for an individual person to deal with. An individual person dealing with the entire brunt of the internet coming down on them, at least from their perspective, however much. Like, with technology, it's very easy at the scales we're doing with for quote unquote a little to actually be a lot for an individual with not that kind of resources at hand. An individual, Zoe Quinn cannot hire a team of people to work for her to filter out all her media stuff. She has to deal with it herself.
Look, I'm not saying
And
that
that is very different
harassment
than a
is good.
celebrity.
I'm not. I obviously condemn all harassment. I've been very clear about that. I don't support anything like that.
But the point of what the Gamers of Dead articles were getting at was that this was being in when the culture was being tested of how it reacted to this Zoe post. It chose to focus on the lurid details, and that harassment occurred was not um, disqualifying.
It seems kind of weird though that we want to shut down all discussion of everything and say that
No one's talking about
everyone's a
shutting down all
misogynist.
discussion of
Not you,
everything.
not you, not you, not you, but like the
Well,
games
no.
journalists and the games journalists and people who were like opposed to GamerGate later on. They want to shut down all discussion of this because like one person on the internet got harassed by some people, and that's bad, and like I don't support that. But now we can't talk about the actual issues. And you're gonna demonize us and say that we're all sexist and misogynist because like some people on some fucking IRC channel were dicks on the internet. Okay, like, like, I mean, like all over because one person was treated like it was treated poorly on the internet, which like billions of people get treated poorly on the internet every fucking day probably. Like, like that's the fucking nature of the internet. Like I've been harassed on the internet. Um, I mean like and then of course when the Gamergate people get harassed, where's the media? Why aren't they rushing to their defense? Where's their where's their social justice warriors are dead article condemning the harassment that we received? Doesn't seem to be there.
Well, in the wake of Gamergate, like there was just a whole lot of shit flinging all over. It became a sort of a muddied mess. Like in the months prior following, I would say.
But like I've been harassed. I don't blame everybody on the other
Like,
side
is
or other I don't even blame other people who were like GG Revolt like when John Kelly wrote his hit piece on me. I mean, like I don't go around like I mean I did kind of blame Gigi World actually, but but like I don't like I'm careful how I caveat my statements. Like I'm not going out there and demonizing all gamers or 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 trying to make it seem like gamer culture caused this because I got harassed on the internet. And I don't try to like demonize large swaths of people. Like why not just say the people who harass Zoe Quinn are bad and I think maybe there's some things we can discuss about the internet and about gaming culture and maybe we can try to do a little bit better in the future moving forward. And like that's like fine. And like most people will be like, "Okay, that seems like a reasonable approach." But that's not the approach they took, right?
yes, because the issue is not just the people who did the harassment. The issue is those all of those who observed it happening and found it not disqualifying.
I mean, like most people didn't observe this happening, right? Like maybe in the world that like you were operating in, but like
Yeah, and this is why my sort of culpability sort of drops over Gamergate over time after Gamergate has happened. My primary culpability is afforded to those who were there in Burgers and Fries doing that whole round of things. The next amount of nearly equal culpability is for those who saw that and decided to throw their hat in the ring and were on that side and didn't find the egregious natures of it disqualifying.
I mean, why are you
Like I
making
find
it
that
about
also to be very much.
sides instead of like just people coming together and like having discussion and like we all resolve the problems together as one big gaming community? Like, why can't we do that? Why did it have to be sides? Why did it have to be a culture war? Why couldn't we come together and like we'll get the ethical reforms, we'll we'll have more diverse characters in game, whatever. Like we'll come together and have a conversation. That's what it should have been. It never should have been this massive thing, this massive
Gamers
culture war.
Nexus Gamers Nexus was able to achieve that with Linus Tech Tips because they did so in a very calculated, careful way that did not involve the wet and wild and exciting nature of an anonymous, leaderless movement.
They were able to convince like one
Doing
YouTube guy
so,
to like
achieving something, doing so, like, there's an issue that happened recently in my friend group where there's someone who had like this problem that everyone was sort of having issues with them, and one of the things that he was saying in defense was that, like, hey, like, I just want to be able to like raise my problems with people, and people should my friends should be able to like understand that I'm bringing these logical issues at hand. They should address just the logical issues, and they shouldn't get emotional about them. And the problem is that, like, we say, okay, here's the problem, friend. If you want people to engage with you in logical ways, don't engage with them in ways that trigger their emotions. So if you want to have this environment where everyone's just working at the problem and working together to fix it, don't do things in ways that just create shitstorms. It is a fallible action
we
to
didn't make the
produce
shitstorm, bro.
a condition.
Like they made
The
the
shitstorm
shitstorm.
was, yeah, serve some burgers and fries, and then the people who came immediately came after thought it was okay and then joined on, and then after that things get weird and muddled, and that's kind of when you joined.
I don't
I'm
care
not
what
calling
like
you bad.
yeah. I don't care what like rando fucking people on an IRC channel fucking okay, they're assholes. Okay. Some of them are assholes, some of them might not be. I don't fucking know. I don't care. You can't write
Like
these
why?
articles condemning gamers and you can't declare an end to who we are, but we're looping on this shit. I'll let you have the
Yeah.
final word and then we can move on to the next question.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's a good conclusion to the loop.
You can
um,
give the final word if you'd like.
um, yeah, I feel like I've made my decision clear. Like it, I want to stress again that like things get muddied later as things progress on because people who do care about a lot of the ethical issues and censorship and what have you, like for one reason or another, like wandered in, and maybe there was a less of an emphasis on like the initial start and the Zoe Quinn stuff and whatnot, and maybe that just muddies the water. It makes it hard to like make these like um, conclusions about people or whatever. But at the very beginning, it was a heck of a time to observe, a heck of a thing to observe in real time. How there was so much animosity that didn't seem to align with anything but just like really bad things like just sexism. Like this woman slept with a lot of people. Let's like whatever happens to her. It's like it's fine. Whatever. Let's talk about. I don't know. I guess I'm rambling, looping myself as well. So I guess that's fine. Enough of a statement.
When you say that the gaming community allowed this to happen to Zoe Quinn, what do you expect like random gamers to do though?
If there was an organization that did bad things and the topic of discussion was like, hey, this organization did a bad thing, and I was like, yeah, this was pretty bad, I would just expect people to not join that organization. I suppose that's it, really. Just be like, yeah, I don't want any part of that. To stand for something and to have like those be your values and be like, yeah, there's some stuff happening, but like this is the important thing right now. And I guess that was the test.
Thank you for watching another video segment from the People of Gamergate. I'm happy to announce that the book, The People of Gamergate Volume 1, is now available in both hardcover and Kindle formats. Please head over to gamergatebook.com or search for The People of Gamergate on Amazon to pick up your copy today. Thank you, and have a great day.